Have you ever wondered that ultimate question? What is the difference between a mini driver and a 3-wood? Well, I know I have, and today we're going to find out. And we're going to find out using TrackMan data what is the performance difference between what is a 190cc head on a 3-wood, a QI35 that is lofted at 15.5 degrees versus a tailor-made mini driver that is a 300cc head lofted at 13.5 degrees. There's just half an inch that separates them in terms of the shaft length. So we're going to do a very much straightforward head-to-head comparison to start with, but then we're going to change things up a little. I'm going to make sure there's an identical comparison made. We're going to shift up the loft so we can get them as close as possible to each other, and we're also going to play exactly the same shaft in both these heads. So let's get hitting some balls and find out ultimately what is the difference between a 3-wood and a mini driver. When I set out to make this video, one of the first things I had to decide was what 3-wood will we use in this comparison. And I've actually gone for the QI35 Max. Why did I choose that? And no doubt it'll be wrong. There'll be plenty of people telling me it should have been this or should have been the other, but this is my logic at least anyway. The QI35 Max 3-wood is a 190cc head, as I've just mentioned. It's closer to the kind of profile that we're looking at in the mini driver, and it's one of the things that draws me to the mini driver in the sense that it's not the bulk and mass of a 460cc driver head, which I'm not overly keen on nowadays, but it's also not a minute 3-wood either, and it sits in a real nice position for me on the eye. And I think if I was looking to put a 3-wood in the bag, then something of the profile of this QI35 might be something I would consider. It's also got 15.5 degrees aloft, which is probably half a degree more than standard. And again, that's something that is a bit more user friendly. And again, would have me encouraged to step into this kind of product. So that's the logic behind the head to head. I'm going to start, or continue rather, hitting my my 3-wood of choice. Let's see if we can get a little tee that I've been using. Already collected data. That's probably one of the better ones actually that we've just finished on. I'll tell you that now. Really good ball, but this is a real nice looking club. Love the QI35 lineup from Address, and I think the fairway woods look superb, but that's a sort of nothing to do with my review as such, or comparison rather, in today's video. So fires off the face, 134, might have pulled it a bit down the left, yeah I did, but a 215 carry. What I'm finding so far is club head speed is not greatly different when I'm swinging the two clubs, which is encouraging because we've got a fairer comparison. So we've got something that's just that half an inch difference in shaft length, and they are different shafts of course, but we will change all that up at the end of this video. So what you're looking at there, we're looking at some good numbers. 215 carry off that 91 club head speed, 134 ball speed is super fast, 2.6 spin, 13.3 launch. That's just a banging set of numbers, to be quite honest with you. And again, probably one of the better balls that I've hit. Let's try one more. See if we can get this a little bit straighter. It's straighter, but maybe not as fast. Yeah, dropped a little bit. Still down the left, but a 210 carry. Good ball speed off club head speed. This isn't a review of this product, but it just shows you how good these 3-woods are. This last few years, these have become very powerful weapons in the bag, and for me, not hugely different to my driver performance, to be quite honest with you. So that is the pretty similar to what I've been collecting, to be quite honest with you. On the 3-wood, you're going to learn nothing there. I'm going to switch up into the mini driver and see what gains we make with 2 degrees stronger in terms of loft and half an inch longer in shaft length. Right, so first thing I want to do is change up the tee height just a little bit higher. Maybe would want this to squeeze it just a little bit higher than we're at right now. But anyway, let's go with this for the testing. Love the look of this thing, the best, in my opinion, mini driver that TaylorMade have produced. What does it do in terms of performance? That was a little bit of a cutout to the right. Well, quite a big cutout to the right. That was not the best of shots to start this one off. We've just, even on the 18th fairway at St Andrews, we might have just put that one into russets. Right, let's see if we can do a bit better. That's a lot better. 135 ball speed. Yeah, we've got that one going down the middle. We've got 222 carry. So a little bit of gain there. What's interesting for me, the first thing you should be picking up on is the fact that club head speed hasn't increased, but ball speed has by a few miles an hour, and the spin rate has remained relatively low. So these are all the things that are going to play a key factor in what does separate these two clubs. The question for me is, and I'd like to know your sort of feedback down below, many of you will have used a mini driver or tried a mini driver by now. They've been very much the kind of in thing over the last few years. What I'd like to know is how many of you have switched over to mini driver and dumped a 3-wood? How many of you sort of still have both in the bag? Just a general experience and feedback really. I always like this bit. I know my own testing and what I found, but for your fellow golfer to read through these comments and sort of see what's happened to other golfers, I think is a good lead in the right direction. So let's try one more. If I can get a tee to sit nicely. I think I'd want this teed up just a tad higher, but I've got no choice. We either go sort of another 2 high into what I would consider a driver tee, or this, which is just a tad low. But anyway, probably a bit high actually. That seems to go off the club face. Still 219 carry, a little bit faster in terms of club head speed. Ball speed didn't jump up because I didn't feel like I got that one out the middle. I think that in terms of this initial test, 15.5 versus 13.5, we're finished. Very quick run through the numbers, and then this shaft is coming out. We're going for the same shaft. We're going to notch down the loft in the 3-wood and see if we can get these two identical, and then see what happens, if anything, that separates the two. Right, like I said, we'll keep this brief. 3-wood numbers, 8 shots hit. Let's get to this bottom bit here. This is the important bit. It's the average is 207 carry, 90 mile an hour club head speed, 130, let's say on average, ball speed, 299 spin, launching 16.8 with a total run out, or suggested run out at least, of 226. Remember those numbers? Oh, we'll keep them on screen anyway, but then we jump up. 217 was the driver, so 10 yards carry. We gained 2 mile an hour in terms of club head speed, and that's really important because that arguably can equate for the carry distance difference. Ball speed of 135, so quite a considerable difference there. 5-6 mile an hour again ball speed, but that's relative to that swing speed. 2.7 spin, 13.7, so launched a good deal lower in terms of average ball flight. That's nearly 3 degrees lower. We've then got a peak height of 79 as opposed to a peak height of 94, so a lot lower ball flight, and a 241. So a 15-yard difference in terms of carry overall. I'm not sure there's anything really surprising in there based on the fact that we use a 15.5 degree 3-wood for the reasons I suggested. So it did launch high, but that's the kind of thing that I would want to see. And the difference in distance arguably is a combination between the shaft length. The spin number surprised me a little bit. The spin number was similar on both. I thought that the mini driver might have spun a little bit lower than that. But as a straightforward comparison, 3-wood versus mini driver, that's the kind of difference you're potentially looking at. But we're going to switch things up, like I said, change the loft in the 3-wood, maybe a little bit of a tweak in that mini driver as well. We'll get these in the same sort of area, and we'll use exactly the same shaft, and let's see what happens then. Right, let's go for it. Shaft is in, 2 degrees taken off in terms of loft. This is the 3-wood at 13.5. Down the left, launching at 9.5. Again, maybe just tried a little bit hard on that one. Let's slow things down a little bit. Okay, down the right to start. That's a much better strike. 13.3 launch. 220 carry, 136 ball speed, club head speed 92. So all of a sudden we're starting to see numbers that are already very much like what we've seen in the mini driver. That's really interesting. First, sort of, let's scrub the first ball. Second ball is identical to the mini driver numbers that we achieve with this shaft. and at 13.5 degrees. $211. So $211, that's dropped off. What are we missing there? Is it spinning too high? Is it launching too low? There's something not quite added up there with that set of numbers, which would concern me a little because, so 92 club head speed with a 134 ball speed, I like that. But then we've got 3,000 revs of spin, so it's spinning up a bit, but it's still launching low at 12.2, peak height 72, running out at 235. In the 3 shots that we've hit with this kind of setup, there's a few sort of variables in there, which, yeah, possibly be my swing variables, and more than likely. But I'll hit a few more balls, I think, before I sort of pass comment on this, and then we'll have a look through the data in a minute or two. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to change to the tee height that we had with the mini driver. And although to me this seems to sit high, I think I'm getting these, I don't know, let's give it a go. That was a much more centered strike. Yeah, that's a nice ball. Then you go back to this thing where you see the launch becomes too high at 19.1. Well, look, I've got to be honest with you, when I hit the first ball with the 13.5 degree 3-wood, I thought this was a bit of a waste of time, and we sort of knew the results, but it soon changed, to be quite honest with you. And I think the experiment sort of led to a conclusion that I think I probably would have guessed in the first place, but like I said, was slightly swayed by that first shot. I'm going to put the data on screen for you now as to what happened when we put a 13.5 degree 3-wood head into the mini driver shaft. So we had an average carry of 209 with a 92 mile an hour club head speed, 133 ball speed, 2750 spin, launching at 14.1, and an overall suggested average of 244. Now those numbers in themselves are fine, they're perfectly adequate, but if you take a closer look, they're a little bit erratic, and I never really felt as though I got the sort of optimal numbers out of that head, either be it, I preferred it as a 3-wood, and I preferred the mini driver as the mini driver, and the switch up of de-lofting the 3-wood just did not work in my opinion. So when you compare those numbers back into the kind of the mini driver, because effectively that's exactly the same setup, 13.5 degree head, same shafting, then we've got, or we ended up with after a couple more shots on all of these, because I was a bit confused at the end of it, a 250 overall, so we're 6 yards further. That's not a great deal of difference. We launched at 13.7 as opposed to 14.1. Again, there'll just be slight anomalies in sort of my own swing. 2.7 spin, 2.7 spin, no difference there. 135.6 ball speed, 133, and 92.2 in terms of that, that carry, and an average carry of 216. Look, like I said, I don't know whether I'm more confused than when I started, but ultimately what I found was this. There's a dispersion chart on the screen for you now as well, and to be quite honest with you, there was zero difference. It's, as I always talk about dispersion, I think it's a bit of a myth, if I'm honest with you. Front to back dispersion is a thing, left to right dispersion is very much all about your swing, and no club will save you there. So pretty much as ever, every club has performed, or every shot has performed ultimately on how good or bad my swing was that I put on it. My conclusion is this, it's quite simple. I think there is more forgiveness, let's call it, in the bigger head of the mini driver than there is in the 3-wood equivalent if what I'm trying to achieve is a kind of off the tee alternative to driver. And I think that's twofold. I think it's one, because of the size of the face. I think the second thing is the size of the profile allows CG to be placed further back in the mini driver head, and the combination of the sort of weighting system that you'll find in the mini driver just means it's a little bit more forgiving than that of the 3-wood, and that's where I think the variables came from when we switched up to the 3-wood head in the end. So I think ultimately, yes, I think you could get exactly the same performance out of both of these clubs with the same sort of strike pattern, with a consistent swing, a swing that I don't have. For me, like I said, if this is a tee shot alternative, I'd still lean towards that mini driver, because I like to find a lot of spots all over that club face, and that 3-wood profile just isn't big enough and sufficient enough for me to get the forgiveness that I need, and also that kind of extra launch helps me with that whole combination where spin, launch, ball speeds, all those things will ultimately go into how this club performs downrange. The mini driver in its standard setup was the longest, and in my opinion still the best performing, but there's not a lot to separate these two, and if you prefer the smaller head profile of a 3-wood, then absolutely go for it. Don't forget, this isn't a case of I'm picking sides. If you've got a 3-wood and you love 3-woods, then stick to 3-woods. If you like mini drivers, stick to mini drivers. There's no winner here. All it is a case of providing you some information to base some decisions on, and ultimately you go out and find out for yourself by trying both of these options and see which works best. That's me done. I'm knackered. That was a lot of balls hit, to be honest with you, and a lot of effort, and I hope it gave you some information to work from. I'll see you soon.